I don't accept for a moment that conservatives have lost the argument. I don't think the argument has been made. Not by the party. Yes, I make it every day here, and some people on Fox and other talk show hosts and the blogs, yes. But none of us get votes. The only way you can say conservatism's losing is in the sense the Republican Party is afraid to use it.
In the spotlight tonight, how did it all go so wrong for the Republican Party? Republican National Committee Chair Reince Priebus has launched the so-called Growth and Opportunity Project to answer that very question and recommend a plan for future elections. 5 Republicans will chair the project, only one of which you've probably heard of, former George W. Bush Press Secretary Ari Fleischer. BuzzFeed notes that 2 members, Ari Fleischer and Henry Barber, are poll truthers who accuse pollsters of oversampling Democrats and underestimating the Romney vote in a bid to secure an Obama victory in November. After learning about the project, Washington Post conservative columnist Jennifer Rubin wrote today, "You can almost hear the cries from the right-wing blogosphere objecting to any substantive policy changes on immigration or gay marriage, and see the eye rolling from grizzled veterans who think it is beneath the dignity of Republicans to feel your pain. But if the party does nothing, there is every reason to believe it will keep losing elections." Here's what Karl Rove believes the Republican Party needs to change.
I hate to say it, but we need to copy what Howard Dean did, and that is make our ground game in all 50 states.
Joining me now, the man behind the 50-state strategy, former DNC chair, Howard Dean. Governor Dean, did you ever think there would be a time where Karl Rove would be saying, we need to be more like Howard Dean?
I did not. It comes as a large surprise to me as well. Look, it is true that the Obama ground game is the best I ever saw. It was unbelievable. And if the Republicans can duplicate that, they have a lot of work to do. Their ground game this time was better than it was last time, but they're way behind. The big problem, though, is that ground game is not enough to win. The fact of the matter is you cannot peddle hate of immigrants, gays, and lesbians and women by saying that God's will was to make women pregnant when they were raped. You can't, if that's what you believe, if that's what conservative principles are, you might as well go someplace else, because this country is not bought it anymore. We're done. The argument is over, and these guys are going to have to change their philosophy, not just their ground game.
Governor, according to Reince Priebus, the Growth and Opportunity Project will focus on these 8 areas. 1, campaign mechanics and ground game. 2, messaging. 3, fundraising. 4, demographic partners and allies. 5, third-party groups. 6, campaign finance issues. 7, presidential primaries. 8, lessons learned from the Democratic campaign tactics. I saw this list. I see who they've appointed. Is this anything other than Reince Priebus's bid to win re-election as RNC chair? I mean, as you said, where is the beef in all of this?
Well, here's the interesting thing. I've been on the same podium with Ari Fleischer, and when you get him into a situation where he can talk openly, he is not a right-winger. So some of these other folks I don't know all that well. But the problem with the party is they're so afraid of their right wing that even the people who aren't right-wingers sound like them. And they won't stand up against him. One of the problems Romney had was he criticized Murdoch when Murdoch came out and talked about God's will being, when women get raped and get pregnant. And then he continued to run ads for him in Indiana. So you got to stand up to somebody, and standing up to people is what folks value in a president. And Mitt Romney wouldn't do it, and I don't see any evidence that the Republican Party is willing to stand up to the hate wing of the Republican Party. And they're going to have to do that in order to win, because that's not an attractive platform that they have there.
Governor, David Brooks of the New York Times would seem to have a differing opinion. He seems decidedly optimistic about the future of the party. He writes today, the Republican Party has a long way to go before it revives itself as a majority party. Over the past month, the Republican Party has changed more than I expected. They are moving in the right direction and moving fast. He cites a number of things, including the fiscal tax, the fiscal cliff looming ahead of Republicans, and the sort of begrudging view towards reality that the tax rates are going to rise. He talks about Marco Rubio and Paul Ryan addressing the Jack Kemp dinner and sort of offering a more palatable vision for the GOP. But at the end of the day, Marco Rubio has said, I don't want to pursue comprehensive immigration reform. This is something best approached on a sort of piecemeal basis. And look,
let's be honest here, Alex.
Exactly. Yes, go ahead.
Marco Rubio has said that he isn't so sure science is a legitimate form of evaluating how old the Earth is. I mean, give me a break here. These, you can put lipstick on a pig; it doesn't change the pig. Really and truly, these guys are just trying to dress themselves up and avoid talking about these tough issues. They're going to talk about these issues as long as they keep nominating people like Todd Aiken and Richard Murdoch. They're not going to be able to avoid these kinds of issues. And as long as they have primary voters who make Mitt Romney more and more, he called himself a severe conservative. He was severe, all right. That's just, they can't win. They can win if they change themselves. They got to stop beating up on gays, stop beating up on immigrants, stop beating up on Muslims, and understand what America is really about. And it really is about opportunity. And the young people who voted, I think 65% for Obama, they would vote Republican if it was just on fiscal grounds. But they're not going to vote Republican when the Republicans are preaching hate of the people they grew up with and who are their friends. That's just not going to happen.
Governor, I thought this was one of the more outrageous things I had heard. Republican campaign consultant Scott Tranter was speaking at a Pew Center panel yesterday, and this is what he said about voter ID laws.
A lot of us are campaign officials or campaign professionals, and we want to do everything we can to help our side. And sometimes we think that's voter ID, sometimes we think that's longer lines, whatever it may be.
The fundamental,
effectively, he's saying we might want to double down on disenfranchising voters in order to win.
This is the fundamental problem with the Republican Party. It's not entirely clear to me that they believe in democracy. Because if you think that it's okay to reduce the number of people to vote so that your side can win, explain to me how you value democracy in the great scheme of one of the greatest democracies in the history of the world. It's not clear to me that taking away people's right to vote is the same thing as democracy. Now, the only voter fraud that happened in the last election were a Republican group in Florida, which was and then Virginia, and then an individual single Republican woman who voted twice, I suppose, to prove a point. That's the only voter fraud there is. The voter ID laws are clearly aimed at restricting the abilities of poor people and young people to vote. If that's what you think it takes to win, then you probably shouldn't be running your campaign in the United States. China, perhaps. Russia, be my guest. That's not American.
Governor Howard Dean, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks as always for your time.